Good afternoon. Welcome you all to Education USA Thursday live session, and a warm welcome to all our audiences who are online right now and joining us from Facebook, and those who have gathered here at the American Center this afternoon. Today's topic is on defining your priorities and shortlisting universities. I presume most of you who have gathered here are just taking the first step, I guess, towards going to a US institution either for the fall 2019 or maybe a year later. The step one is very, very important because always it says if you take the right step first, rest of the things will fall in place. Okay? So, the step one, if you are going to take a little more time and do a very diligent work, I am sure the application process to US university will be a very easy go for everybody. So, having said that, I am going to give a short introduction about whom we are and what we do, and subsequently take you through this session. I am Shanti Mohan, and I work with US India Educational Foundation as Education USA coordinator. US India Educational Foundation is a binational organization which is formed as a treaty between US and India, and it was started in the year 1950. We promote two programs, primarily Fulbright and Fulbright Nehru Fellowships, and Education USA is the other program that we administer here. Education USA is a program that is funded by the US Department of State, and it's not that it's running only in India. It is, his presence is there in 170 plus countries, and we have 400 centers all over the world. So, the reason behind this program is to help international students like you to give the accurate, comprehensive and current information on US higher education. We also give you the most unbiased information, which means that if you reach out to us to any of our centers in the world, nobody would just give you a list saying that this is the list of university that you can apply. So, we may basically help you understand the process and make a well informed decision and do it yourself kind of approach. Okay. So, let us now move on to the session. Okay. We categorize this entire application process as a let us say a 5-step approach model. So, what are these 5 steps? The step one is whoever wants to start their journey to US, the first thing is they have to conduct a research about what are the options they have, which best suit them, and how can they achieve it. That should be the first step. Second step is when you start this journey, obviously you need to think about your financial capability to pay for your education, or are there any means or support that is given by the US universities for you to accomplish this. The next step is once you identify the universities or educational institution that give you the right kind of programs or courses that you are interested in doing, and also they support you financially, the next thing is you start shooting your applications to them. That is step 3. When I say application, it's just not a piece of paper, it's a package. There's a whole lot of documents and other process that are involved through which you start sending your application to the institution. So, when I say application, it's just not one institution, you will be sending them to multiple institutions, and once it reaches them, they go through a process to evaluate your eligibility to be in that institution. And then you will receive either multiple admits or all admits, few rejects, it could be a combination of anything. Whatever be the case, end of the day you will be attending only one institution, and once you decide where you want to go and study, you take the 4th step, that is the student visa process. So, student visa process is again, it's like it has set of things that you need to do. You need to fix appointments, you need to fill up a lot of documents to fix the appointment and then go and attend the interview. Once your visa process is through, you are ready to take off from wherever you are. So, but the final step is pre-departure orientation. So, it is not like taking off just by saying bye, and there are several things that you need to take care of before you leave this country. So, that is why we have given a lot of importance to the last step. So, the first and last step are very, very important. So, if you are able to do the rest of them seamlessly. Okay. So, in today's session, we will be talking more about defining priorities, defining your priorities, and shortlisting universities. Okay. When I say defining priorities, what should you do? You must ask yourself all these important questions. why should you ask yourself? Obviously, nobody else can decide for you, right? Even if you are just out probably in your 11th grade, you are planning to go for your undergrad education, or you are somebody who have already finished your first level of collegiate education and you are going for the next level. In either case, the individual should understand what do they need. Maybe your parents are saying at the undergrad level, the parents might say, I want you to go abroad and study. But as an individual, you may not be really interested in doing it. So, feel free to discuss that with your family and say why you want to go and why don't you want to go. So, I have listed few of these parameters which normally students think are very important or very important priorities. So, one is, most of us want to go abroad and study primarily for an international exposure, and the network that we build through an international education is definitely quite wide. It is like a world wide web. You make a big connection there. And of course, sometimes what happens, your home country may not provide all the specialized curriculum that you are looking for, but it is available in the US. So, these are the various reasons I think are the primary priority that you might have in your mind to start this process. So, having identified various priorities, you can internally prioritize them according to your needs, and then you start building a profile of yours. So, more than building a profile, I would say you need to list down all your elements under these categories that we have mentioned here. I am sure most of you would have heard about SWOT analysis, right. So, you need to identify what are your strengths. I would not call it weakness, maybe some kind of a shortfall that if you have, you need to fill up a gap. Let us say that you have never traveled outside India, and maybe you have your own apprehensions about going abroad. So, you can even list down as simple things as that and just build up all the necessary information on these primary categories. Academic goals, it's definitely I would say a clear short one. All of you will say I want to go for my undergrad education or I want to go for my graduate education, but do not stop it like very I would say not a very simple goal. Always think about like 10 years down the lane, what would you do and what do you want to do in the immediate future. So, just categorize them accordingly. So, once you prepare this mapping, the next step is we need to dwell deep into many things like what is my academic level, where do I stand academically, where do I stand as a student outside my classroom, what all things have I done so that I can really highlight and say that I am very unique, nobody else would have had this opportunity. So, those sort of things you have to elaborate. So, I would call it as assess your academic and professional background, everything that you have done. Like it could be a very small community service, or it could be a very simple project that you had done, but somebody really benefited because of that. Or as a let us say you might be a working professional, you are part of a CSR activity in the organization, I mean corporate social responsibility. So, all these things you need to first jot down before even taking the journey of identifying which university you want to go to. Okay. So, the defining priorities is the first stage. So, identify what are your priorities, map them according to your major strengths, academic goals, career goals, etc., and then dwell deep into each of these and put down what are you strong at, what are the things you think you can really highlight about yourself. So, since this is completely an information about your own self, nobody else can help you. Of course, the family members can help you, because especially with the school children, I have always worked more with undergrads. I find that the mothers will always tell me what are the competitions they have won, they have participated, this year they went for this, and so many things. The kids invariably leave them out, but you have to list out everything, every single thing that you have done, so that it helps you. Okay. So, when you do researching about universities, so we were talking about priority. Whatever be your priority, the first and foremost thing you should research about is the program that you want to study. Okay. So, when I say program, that's in the American terminology, program means the degree that we are trying to get here in India. Say like I want to go for a science degree, BSc physics or something. So, you need to identify what you want to really do first. So, once you identify the field, find out whether the university offers you that particular field and also specialization related to the field that you have chosen. Sometimes specialization, what happens is we get carried away by either by our friends or by the family, and we only focus on one particular specialization. Never do that. Have many options open for you. So, when you have multiple specialization related to a specific field, it is always useful for you to switch between that. Say for example, most of the undergrad students, when they come to us, they won't say computer science. I want to get into artificial intelligence, right? But artificial intelligence is a specialization which is an offshoot of comes from the computer science. So, I understand when you go for your master's program and you have more specialization, it helps you a lot. At the undergrad level, be little flexible so that you can experiment with many things here. Okay. So, that is the reason we say what are the, you can look for focal specializations offered by the university and also additional specialization related to that particular program. And is there any funding available at that level of study, either for a grad or the undergrad, or even when you go for your PhD programs, funding becomes an essential part. So, make sure you get funding at that stage. And when you do this kind of research, you can also take a look at the university teaching faculty profiles and see whether their interests align with yours. Sometimes most of these professors do very interesting researches, and that could be a great opportunity for student like you to engage yourself with them. I mean, basically it is not going to happen just in a day. You need to keep communicating with them. They also need to understand you, and if they find you a right match, they will give you those sort of opportunities to work with them. So, primarily do all kind of research that is necessary for confirming the program offered in that university, and then take the next step. So, after this, the next step would be, because when you come to this stage itself, you will eliminate many universities. Just for your information, there are about 4,500 US universities, and you are not going to search in 4,500. So, how would you narrow down your search? The first and foremost narrowing factor would be the program that you want to study, and this will eliminate all those other things who are not offering the program that you are interested in. So, after that, the next stage would be the first criteria we always recommend. The student should check the accreditation status of the university. Where would you go and check? chia.org is one of the trusted, the site where you can check whether the university is accredited, and you can also go for US Department of Education website. Both these websites, if you type in the name of the university and if it comes back with a search saying by which council it is, it's accredited, then it's a good university to go with. If there is no accreditation, we definitely warn everyone, please do not go ahead with them. If they are not accredited and if you do not find them in the chia website or in the Department of Education website, please do not proceed with that university. And also when you do the accreditation, the other accreditation you should look for is your program accredited? So, when I talk about program, most of the engineering and science related programs are accredited by ABET, and those who are in the business schools are accredited by AACSB. So, look for proper program accreditation as well, and then the next step would be to compare the characteristics of colleges. So, like there are two types of colleges in the US, one is the public universities and the other one the private colleges. So, you decide whether you want to go for a public one or the private one, and each of them have their own pluses. See whether that suits your priority or it matches with your requirement as well. There will be definitely variation in terms of cost and tuition, living expenses between each university. No two university will have the same set of cost. I mean, if it happens, it is a match, I would say, but generally not all of them have the similar kind of thing. But if you have a budget in mind, no harm in picking up institution which well fit into that particular budget. Okay. So, it is not like that I should only aim at getting into, of course, you can aim at getting into an Ivy League or the top notch colleges, but at the same time be very realistic in your selection process also. Okay. The next comes competitiveness or selectivity. This is where I wanted to talk about it. So, competitiveness is like the university definitely sets a standard, and whenever an applicant sends a package, they definitely evaluate whether do you fit into that framework, and only then they are going to decide your admission. Where would you find these kind of information? Most of the universities do have something called a university student profile page. So, they give the profile of last year admit, current year admit, or last but 2 years admit. So, this profile will give you the average SAT or GRE scores with which they were taken, and what are the profile of the student, which part of the country are they, which part of the world are they coming from, especially for international students, and what is the international student percentage compared to the local students, how much funding so far they have offered, what was the highest level of scholarship that was awarded in the university. All this information is available in the university website. So, just go read through that, then you can assess your own self whether you fit into that particular border. GRE and SAT alone is not going to decide, or for that matter even GMAT is just not going to decide your admission to an institution. They are one of the factors, but looking at this profile at least tell you what kind of students have they admitted into that university. Teacher student ratio, this is something very important. We are so used to large classrooms in India, but in the US certain programs could be like just a 3 student classroom, or it could be like 10 students studying in a class, whatever it may be. So, if you are very particular about going to a school which gives you a lot of personalized attention, then the first and foremost factor that you should take a look at is the teacher student ratio. Okay. Finally, the application requirements. So, application requirements, there is a standard format to it. Like I need some, you need to clear some standardized test, and every university would require an English proficiency test. Sometimes SAT and GRE may be optional, but they will definitely ask you to write a TOEFL or IELTS exam, because being non-native speakers of English, we are required to take or prove our proficiency in the English language. Then finally, whether is there any course specific requirements. This is more so for grad students. When you pick up certain programs that may also require work experience or research experience. So, make sure that you make a note of all those things. So, these are our next 4 set of research headings, and then we move on to these are not so important, but at the same time important to some extent. So, having decided that you are going to move out of your own country and going abroad, where do you want to settle based on let us say a weather or something, it is not that important. The reason is, a lot of people say that okay, I want to go to only California, I want to go to only Texas, because they feel that the weather absolutely matches with the weather in Chennai or in some other part of India. I mean, at least I feel, you know, you shouldn't really narrow your search to that level. Be very open. You have decided to experiment. So, why don't you go to a place which is going to be really cold and still feel the snow and be very happy about it, right? So, these are certain factors which are, I would say, more individualistic. I mean, nobody can give you a kind of thumb rule for selecting where should you go and those sort of things. Of course, sometimes this housing and other things we can be little picky on, like we wouldn't want to share the room with more than one person, or it could be like I want to live alone. So, those things, that is something that you need to decide how you want to plan it, and accordingly make sure you have a budget also. Okay? So, individual accommodations always are expensive. So, you make sure that you have the budget. And finally, the activities, and those of you who are interested in sports definitely must look for universities which has a lot of these activities being encouraged. Of course, all US universities encourage sports, but also see if you can still play some of your Indian games like cricket and other things. If you want to continue there, you could look for such universities as well. Okay, these are additional researchers apart from those 7 factors that I have mentioned earlier. Many times what happens, we start the process thinking that I want to go next fall, but invariably we end up having some other commitment, and suddenly we realize I can't go this September. I want to go and attend in a spring season in that, in a spring semester in that university. So, make sure apart from the fall admission, is that university having any other admission intakes like a spring intake or a summer intake, and when you do that, also make sure that they give your program. Not all universities will give all the programs during all intakes. So, you have to be very, very careful about choosing those things. And application deadlines, see at the undergrad level, it is very, very straightforward. There is one common application deadline for everybody. But in the case of graduates, sometimes it could be a departmental deadline also. So, computer science would have one deadline, and or the science and say physics or somebody might have a different deadline. Basically it depends on whether your department comes under the same college or from in a different college. And then financial aid process. Financial aid deadline is also very important. The reason is certain colleges, if you don't provide them your financial capability or financial information about yourself by certain date, they may not consider you for scholarship. This is a very classic case with undergrads. So, you have very specific deadlines for sending your regular application and a financial application. In the case of grad students, look for something called a priority deadline. So, priority deadline is usually with when they consider you for financial aid, they will still accept application after that, but they may not really consider you for a financial aid. Okay. So, these are the primary category under which you need to research all your options. And then having done this various stages of it, you would land up now with a 15 or 20 universities, and which you have to further filter with regard to any other additional information that you have in mind. So, it is like a funneling activity that happens here. So, from 4,500 you do all this research and you narrow it to something like a 15 or 20, and from the 15 or 20 I would say the most practical or acceptable size, I would say anywhere from 8 to 12. Do not go to beyond like 20 universities and 25 universities. I have seen students sometimes when they say the application fee is free, they just send it right, left and center. So, just because the application fee is free, do not send it to all universities. It does not make sense, because they do not really probably do not fit your requirements. So, have the at this stage where we think about the dream, matching and safe, I am sure most of you come with an expectation, how do I identify whether an university is a dream, matching and safe. So, my answer to this would be like in the couple of slides before, I was talking about university statistics page or a profile of admitted students in the past. So, that is your first way to understand whether that university is going to be a dream university, matching and safe. So, why do I call it a dream? Because when the parameters what that is described in the page is just not fitting into anything that you have right now achieved or have it on your plate. So, definitely that becomes a dream university for you. But how would you fill the gap? So, you can always fill the gap when you apply to a dream university. Maybe that you have, apart from the academic achievements and other things, you might have something outside, some extraordinary work that you have done, which or with a limited opportunity, how have you proved yourself. So, these are the ways by which you actually build the gap when you want to apply to really a dream university. Matching university is almost whatever profile you have on hand is what the university is requiring. And finally, the safe, you know for sure if you apply, you are going to get an admit into this university. But people always mistake when we say safe, they think like an university which says I do not need a GRE or SAT. So, they send them and they would have got, let us say, a SAT score of 1500 and a GRE score of 320, and that particular student want to send to an university which is test optional. Does not make sense. They all think that they will get admitted. You may not, because they know for sure a person with this kind of a high profile is not going to take their admission, and they may reject your application also. So, do not be surprised if you are going to send it to one university which does not even match any of your requirement, and just because you have a great SAT or a academic standing or something, you will get an admission. This is a wrong misconception. So, all this dream, matching, safe are with regard to a person's profile, and there is no generic formula to describe that this is a dream university or a safe university or a matching university. This is something that you all need to really think and then start this process. Okay. So, how do I conduct this research and what are the resources that are available? These are the various websites that can definitely help you do this. It is EducationUSA, state.gov, you can go there and you can find a database of institution. Then you can go to the Princeton Review, Peterson's, Big Future, which is a part of College Board, and College Navigator, which is in the Department of Education website. All these things can be a great resource for you to shortlist. Again, word of mouth, attending many university fairs, or seniors studying there, or siblings studying there, all these things are add-on inputs for you. Again, what well suited your brother or sister need not be the right choice for you, right? It happens at times, but not always. So, I am just going to show you a screenshot of all these websites. So, if you go to Big Future is primarily for undergrad students. So, it is part of the college board. So, when they go for their SAT registration and other things, they can use this website to do a lot of shortlisting. So, basically it gives you everything. It talks about application deadlines. It also gives you what is the cost of attendance in that institution. Are there any financial aids, and whether that university requires you to complete a CSS form or international student financial aid form, everything. It is very well detailed. All you need is time and commitment to complete that. I think you have great resources available online. You do not need anyone's help also doing it. Okay. Next, this is College Navigator. College Navigator gives you, including the location, and see, it gives you whole sort of things like what are the programs and majors they offer, what are the degrees that they offer. So, if at all you are looking for like combined degrees, BSMS degrees, or if you want to go for an integrated PhD, these kind of websites can give you those ideas like whether they offer such programs first of all. Okay. And this is Peterson's. Peterson's is a very easy to handle site, and I mean any student who can walk into our center, the first and foremost thing we introduce them is to the Peterson's. So, just summarizing, how do we conduct the research and what are the resources that are available? As I mentioned, please visit the college and university websites. Just don't talk only to people. Also visit the website and understand what the university is offering, because they will always have the current information there. Then use the search engines which I had described now to shortlist your universities. And once you do that, there are almost all US universities have virtual tours built into their website. So, please take a look at the virtual tours. Sometimes the virtual tours are so elaborate, you can navigate and go to different places in the university to see what all facilities that they have. Sometimes the universities give you a online session. So, do not miss those online sessions, log into those sessions, and they can even take you a live tour of the university to show you what is available there. Then comes educational fairs. This is where you can personally meet up with the US university representatives or admission officers. You can discuss your profile with them and ask them whatever questions you have in mind. And finally, you can reach out to Education USA Advising Center in any of the cities in India, and the advisors at the Education USA Center will help you with answering all your queries. Okay. So, this is a sample chart that I have included. When you make this kind of a research, it can't be just like jotting down in one piece of paper and just forgetting about it later. You need to probably create an Excel chart or whatever you are comfortable with. Even on a paper you can work. But what are the parameters you need to list on an Excel sheet? Because this is what we mostly recommend any student who come to us. So, we tell them that if you are able to make this at the first level, I am sure you will get into many US universities. So, if you miss out on many things, that is when you go back and forth. I mean collecting information about, oh, do I need to submit a manual transcript to that university, or does this university require an additional essay that I need to submit. All this kind of missing information, if you want to avoid at the last minute, I mean moreover very close to the application deadline, please have this Excel sheet worked out so that it can help you in the longer run. I am sure many of you are already doing the process. This is just like I am reiterating whatever you are doing now. Okay. So, that is it. We have come to the end of the presentation, and these are the ways in which Education USA centers can help you. We conduct group sessions like this. You can come to our come to the American Center and join us here, or you can watch us live from US Consulate Chennai Facebook page. And any questions and other things you have, you can post us on the Facebook, or you can see the WhatsApp number that's scrolling on the image, and you could even send your messages to it. And you can walk into our office inside the American Center and talk to us. We work Monday to Friday, 9:30 to 4:30, and we will be showing all our contact information here. You could connect with us through any of these means. You can join in our Saturday webinars, which is from 10 to 11 a.m. or you can send your messages in our Facebook page, or you can walk into our center personally. And of course, you can also go to educationusa.state.gov website and send us all your queries. So, those of you who are watching us live, please feel free to post your questions and or send them through the WhatsApp number that is displayed. And those who have gathered here, now it is time for questions. I am open for any questions. Any questions?
So we talked about the fees, right?
Yeah.
So can you give like rough idea like how much it will be?
Okay. The question from the audience at the center, what would be the rough estimate of fees in the or cost of attendance in a US institution? I would like to ask you a question, sir. Is it for an undergrad education or a grad education? Undergrad. Okay. Usually it can range to from a minimal level to a max, and I would put it across this way, like it can range anywhere from $20,000 per year, and it can go to even $65,000 per year. This is the range. Again, as I told you, you can choose which best fits you also.
Would most universities have two different deadlines, one for scholarship deadline, one for regular application deadline? How does it work?
Okay. The question from the audience here is, do the universities have different deadlines, one for application and one for scholarship? So, sometimes it is university specific. They can have one common application to assess both the admission as well as the scholarship. So, in that case it will be only one deadline, but at times they may have a separate application for scholarship and an admission application. In such a case, there could be two different application dates. If you are applying for undergrad, there are two more additional deadlines that you need to look for. At the undergrad level, one is regular deadline, which is common for everybody. That is, the university gives you a deadline and you apply by that. At the undergrad level, there is something called early action deadline and early action and early decision deadline. I am sorry. Early action deadline, what it does is, it's like you are trying to find out or assess whether your profile is suitable for that university. So, you send the application by that particular date. So, the university before the regular deadline, they come back to you saying that yes, your profile best fits you and we are also admitting you. Sometimes the early action could be like just only evaluates your profile, but they do not give you an admission decision, but when the regular admission comes through, they will give your admission decision. The other thing, it is early deadline. Early deadline is like a binding, or I can say early decision is a binding thing. Early decision, why it is binding is, you have to assess completely that this is the right university for you and you well fit into all the requirements that they are looking for, and you are 100% sure that you do not want to attend any other institution other than this if you get through into this. So, in such a case, the student can apply to a early decision. Usually the early action and early decision deadlines are much before your regular deadlines, which normally comes probably 3 weeks later or 1 month later, like that. But in the case of grad application, I have seen only two different types of deadlines. One is the priority deadline. So, by the priority deadline, if you apply, your application is automatically considered for any kind of financial support or scholarship. If you apply after priority deadline, it is only for admission that they consider your application. Any other questions? If there are no,
the subject side scores, are they required during the decision making process? Like, because I think there is a date until December that we can take these exams, right?
Yeah.
So if they go up to December, will they be late for an early decision?
Okay. Yeah. The question from the audience is, this is about SAT subject test taking. So, is the SAT subject test should be taken before sending the application for an early decision or regular deadline? Is that your question?
Yes.
Okay. So, first of all, you have to verify the university whether is SAT subject mandatory for admission decision. If the university says that it is mandatory that they need 2 subject scores to admission decision, then irrespective of whether it is early decision or regular decision, I mean regular deadline, we recommend that the students send it. Failing which, suppose if I am not able to send it, it is not a big issue. You could always report it to them by the January or anything. because the schools are not that stringent about the SAT subject test, but they have to they make sure that the student definitely takes it if there is a requirement for it. But to always stand a better chance, we recommend that complete all that is required by the university, so that you don't miss out on anything when you apply for a early decision.
So the safe date for that would be like October?
Yes, the safe date for writing any test if you are applying for a fall 2019 would be October, I would say. You should have completed your GRE in the case of grads, GMAT, and also SAT or ACT, SAT subjects, everything you can finish by that date. Any more questions?
Students have different curriculum here in India, and when they apply for education, is there any one website where they can look at the equivalent transferable credits or any respect available?
Could you repeat your question, sir?
Here in India, there are different curriculums. Like
Yes, yes.
BSc, IGCSE, and all that. Is there any reference website, one website that summarizes all the curriculums and confirm whether these are accepted for getting credits in their undergrad?
Okay. The question from the audience is there a common website or a forum that can help us to evaluate the various curriculum that are existing in India, especially at the school level?
Right.
Okay. So,
Also for credits, not just for admission, for credits.
credits also. Okay. So, if you look at it, if you are going for an undergrad program, from the school level, if you look at the general procedure, there are no credits that are transferred, except that if you write an advanced placement exam, which is like you are testing the college level exam when you are in school, the AP exam points alone, scores alone can be taken for a credit transfer. That again, the credit transfer policy is absolutely university specific, and no two universities may have a common policy towards it. So, some universities say that they do not accept the AP scores, or they do not really give a credit waiver for the AP scores, but on the other hand, some universities do give you a credit waiver for AP scores, provided your scores are either 4 or 5. If this question is related to IB curriculum, students do high level programs, but we have not come across anyone taking a credit transfer for the high level programs that they do here. Yeah. Yeah.
There are some countries in Europe where some students get some benefits like free travel pass. So is there any benefits that we have as a student in US like this?
Okay. The question from the audience is about getting some sort of benefits like a travel pass or any other support to travel to US or scholarship in the university.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
From the government side.
Okay, fine. So, answering the question, I presume you are a grad student? Okay. Answering the question from the student, yes, the first and foremost location for you to identify such a thing is the university website. So, and always stick to the priority deadline, because there is a higher chances of you getting some sort of financial assistance. The other thing is, as a grad student, keep focusing on all the on-campus jobs that gets published in the university website or international student office website, or even in some departmental website. So, look for that opportunity. These are the ways by which you can definitely get some support. You need to be really proactive. That's all I can say about that. Okay.
One more question.
Yes, sir.
We have dealt with so many students from here applying for undergrad, and have you come across situations where undergrad students, applicants would ask for a personal interview before admission?
Yeah, the question from the audience is about when the student applying for an undergrad admission in the US, have they ever been interviewed by the US universities?
In person.
In person. Okay, so we have come across instances where our students have been interviewed by the alums of those universities who are located in India. So, they either call for a personal interview, or sometime it is Skype or the telephone interview. It happens. Yeah.
There's a question from our online viewer. Apparently, can you go to a slide where it had the undergrad and the graduate consultant? For some reason, you're not able to clearly see.
Okay. My apologies. I think the audience wanted to know this sample chart. This was taken from one of the Excel sheet that we are maintaining right now. So, the visibility factor is very less, but I can just say that it is basically like a ready reckoner for you at any point of time, which are the colleges which are there in your list. It is more like I would say application tracker that you can build on your own using Excel. I would say the common factors is basically maintain the university name, in the university in which college you would want to send in your application, the deadline of the application, financial aid application deadline, acceptance rate, whether it is a public university or a private university, whether it is in an urban location or rural location, whether they accept IELTS exam. So, just to highlight a point, all US universities accept TOEFL, but only close to 3000 plus US universities accept both TOEFL and IELTS. If in case your requirement is to write a proficiency exam, please make sure that the list of universities that you have selected either accept IELTS or TOEFL is accepted by all of them. So, make sure that they are accepting IELTS if you plan to take IELTS. And SAT subject mandatory, you can check. If it is not mandatory, I would say you do not need to really take those exams. If all the universities that you plan to apply are not asking for a SAT subject test, do not even do it. Or if you want to present a case for you, like suppose you think that your marks are going to be little low in biology during your 10th, 11th and 12th grade, but your interest is more towards biology, then you can prove to them saying that I am good at that subject by taking a SAT biology test. Okay. So, letters of recommendation, counselor report, all these things are related to undergrad studies. Similarly, graduate students, you have to check whether the LOR is to be presented online or they can send a physical copy, and especially for students who are coming from 3-year colleges, like when you do a BSc program in India, many a times to get an acceptance from the US university, they may ask you to evaluate your credentials. So, every semester course by course evaluation will be done, and there are agencies to do that. So, you need to send your application to the agencies, and they directly once after evaluation is done, they give the equivalency report directly to the university which has asked you to evaluate this. So, these are all very important to note down at this stage, because as the application process cycle begins close to October, November, December, all these agencies, testing agencies, everybody gets so busy. So, you will be stuck with them, and instead of getting the report in 10 days, it may take 20 days and 25 days and things like that. So, please be proactive and make sure that you line up or schedule the things accordingly. That is the reason having this will help you plan your timing accordingly.
There is another question from the same viewer. How do we select the application deadline? Is it good to apply by the first deadline?
Okay. There is a question from the online viewer. Is it good to select the first application deadline? See, I think this is something you need to take a review of how important is that university for you. If you are very keen on getting into that university, then obviously you should be well ahead of time and send in your application by the first deadline possible. Sometimes there are the reason the universities have many intakes is that they still have place for students. So, if I apply by first and if I miss the first deadline and if I am applying by second deadline, it does not mean that I am not going to get admitted. The reason that they are having a second deadline itself, they are still waiting to take more students. Okay. That is it. So, are there any questions from the audience?
Can you have access to this presentation, or at least the recording? Where can we see this recording? We want to
Yeah. Question from the viewer at the center. He wants to know whether he can view the session at a later point of time. Yes, this FB live sessions are recorded. You can either visit US Consulate Chennai Facebook page and click on the videos to watch this session once again. Alternatively, you can visit EducationUSA India Facebook page and you can look for the videos over there as well. And you can go to our EducationUSA India YouTube channel. You will find, you will find many of our recorded presentations, so you could watch them as well. It will not be in YouTube right now, it will be in the US Consulate Chennai Facebook page. Yes, it is recorded, so you can see all the slides. Okay.